Echoes of the iron serpent. The slap landed like a thunderclap in the steel womb of the Trans-Siberian Express, shattering the fragile peace of hurtling through Siberia's frozen veins. Steven Seagal, the unbreakable Aikido legend whose hands had felled cartels and silenced warlords, staggered back against the compartment door, his cheek blooming crimson under the old woman's gnarled fist. Her eyes sharp as shattered ice locked onto his, not with fear, but with the feral gleam of a predator finally cornered by its prey. "You stole my son," she hissed in flawless English, her voice cutting through the train's relentless roar like a blade through silk. In that instant, the world narrowed to the salt of her palm on his skin, the ghosts of Moscow's underbelly rising from the grave, and the realization that this frail crone held the key to unraveling every lie he'd built his empire of shadows upon. Seagal's mind raced faster than the locomotive devouring the taiga outside, snowflakes blurring into white fury against the frost-laced window. Who was she? The question clawed at him, but instinct honed in dojos from Tokyo to Tehran kept his body coiled, ready to redirect her fury into oblivion. Yet he didn't strike. Not yet. The compartment reeked of stale borscht and diesel. The other passengers frozen in their seats, a tatar merchant clutching his fur hat, a pair of oligarchs' mistresses whispering in Cyrillic panic, a grizzled Cossack veteran whose scarred knuckles twitched toward a hidden knife. One wrong move, and the powder keg of this hurtling tin can would ignite. Seagal straightened, his black trench coat whispering against the velvet bench, and met her gaze. "Lady," he growled, voice low as a suppressed .45, "you just bought yourself a one-way ticket to regret." But regret? It was already his shadow, trailing him from the moment he boarded in Vladivostok under the alias Victor Kane, a ghost name for a man who'd faked his death twice before turning 50. The mission was simple on paper: intercept a black market nuke schematic smuggled by Chechen ghosts, deliver it to a Kremlin contact in Irkutsk, and vanish before the FSB's wolves caught his scent. Simple, until her. The old woman, Elena Petrova, though he wouldn't know that for another heartbeat, had slipped into his first-class berth like smoke, her babushka veiling a face etched by decades of Siberian winters and unspoken vendettas. She'd sat across from him uninvited, sipping tea from a samovar that hissed like a serpent, her arthritic fingers steady as she unfolded a yellowed photograph. A boy, no older than 10, grinning beside a younger Seagal in fatigues. The backdrop a crumbling Leningrad warehouse in '89. "You remember him?" Elena's words had slithered out then, before the slap, as the train lurched over a frozen switch. Seagal had glanced at the photo, a flicker of recognition stabbing his gut like bad vodka. The boy Dmitri. The street urchin he'd pulled from a gang initiation ritual during his first Black Ops stint with the CIA's shadow arm in the dying USSR. Seagal had taught the kid Aikido basics in stolen hours. A makeshift sensei forging a bond amid the rubble of perestroika. "He was like a son to me," Seagal had muttered, pushing the photo back, his voice a gravelly deflection. Lies, all of it. Because Dmitri hadn't just been a kid. He'd been the spark that ignited Seagal's fall from grace. The innocent casualty in a web of betrayals that still haunted his dreams. The train whistle screamed a banshee wail slicing the night as Elena's hand trembled. Not from age, but from the dam of rage cracking inside her. "You left him to die," she spat now, rising with the grace of a ballerina who'd traded tutus for tactical vests. The compartment door rattled behind Seagal, locked from the outside by some unseen hand, trapping them in this rolling confessional. Outside, the aurora borealis danced like emerald phantoms, mocking the blood feud unfolding within. Seagal's pulse thrummed, Aikido breath steadying him. Inhale the threat, exhale the kill. But this wasn't a dojo spar. This was personal, a reckoning dragged from the permafrost of his past. Flashback clawed forward unbidden, yanking Seagal back to Leningrad, 89, where the Iron Curtain frayed like cheap wool. He'd been Sergei Volkov then, a CIA asset embedded in the KGB's fringes, his Hollywood dreams buried under layers of false passports and suppressed memories. The city pulsed with desperation, bread lines snaking through blizzards, black marketeers hawking caviar for cartridges, dissidents vanishing into Lubyanka's maw. Seagal lean, unscarred, his ponytail a defiant whip, had stumbled into Dmitri during a raid on a smuggler's den. The boy, all elbows and defiance, had lunged at him with a rusty shiv, eyes wild as a cornered wolf. Seagal disarmed him in a blur, pinning the kid's wrist with an Ikkyo lock that ended in laughter instead of a snap. "You're quick, Malish," he'd said, ruffling the boy's matted hair. "But sloppy. Come, I'll show you how to redirect the devil's own fury." Weeks blurred into a clandestine brotherhood. In abandoned factories reeking of rust and revolution, Seagal drilled Dmitri in the art of Aikido. Circular deflections, wrist throws that turned aggression into poetry. The boy soaked it up like parched earth, his frail frame hardening under the sensei's gaze. Elena, Dmitri's mother, watched from the shadows, a widow scraping by as a seamstress, her needle-mending uniforms for the very regime that had devoured her husband in Afghanistan. She never spoke much, but her eyes followed Seagal with a mix of gratitude and wariness, like a doe eyeing the hunter who spared her fawn. "He has no father," she'd whispered once, over weak tea in their cramped communalka. "You give him strength." Seagal had nodded, the weight of her trust a chain he hadn't asked for. Strength? He was there to dismantle the Soviet machine, not play paternal savior, but the hook sank deeper. One frostbitten night, as Seagal orchestrated a defection, exfiltrating a physicist with uranium blueprints, Dmitri tagged along uninvited, a shadow in oversized boots. The drop point, a derelict tram depot on the Neva's edge, where St. Petersburg's ghosts whispered through bullet-pocked walls. Tension coiled like a spring. KGB tails slithered in the fog, their Volga sedans purring threats. Seagal moved like liquid shadow, bundling the defector into a hidden skiff, when gunfire erupted silenced bursts from the tree line. Dmitri, frozen in the crossfire, screamed as a round grazed his shoulder. Seagal whirled, scooping the boy up in a fireman's carry, his free hand hurling a flashbang that bloomed like a dying star. They bolted through the labyrinth of docks, bullets chewing the ice at their heels. Elena waited in a getaway Lada, engine idling like a heartbeat. "Go!" Seagal barked, shoving Dmitri into the back seat, blood soaking the vinyl. But the physicist panicked. Selfish bolted the wrong way, drawing fire like a moth to flame. A sniper's round punched through the windshield, Elena's scream shattering the chaos as it claimed her arm in a spray of crimson. Seagal fired back, his Makarov barking death into the gloom, dropping two shadows before the skiff's pilot gunned the motor. Dmitri, pale as moonlight, clutched his mother's hand. "Sensei, you saved us." Saved? The words soured in Seagal's throat even then, because in the exfil's frenzy, choices fractured like glass. The CI's extraction chopper hovered over the Gulf of Finland, rotors whipping the sea to froth. Room for three, Seagal, the physicist, and one more. Dmitri's wound festered. Elena's arm hung useless. "Take the boy," Seagal urged the pilot, shoving Dmitri aboard. Elena's eyes pleaded stay. "Fight, don't abandon us again." But orders were iron. The asset first, always. Seagal lingered a beat too long. A KGB ambush closing the noose. "I'll come back," he lied to her, the words ash on his tongue as the chopper clawed skyward. Dmitri's face pressed to the window, a final hook in Seagal's soul. He never did return. The wall fell, the USSR crumbled, and Seagal resurfaced in Hollywood's glare action star, Aikido icon, untouchable. Whispers of that night faded into redacted files, buried under NDAs and Novocaine numbness. But Elena? She clawed through the ashes. Her arm healed crooked, a constant reminder, but Dmitri... The boy's infection raged unchecked in a Leningrad black clinic. Gangrene claimed him weeks later, his last words a fevered chant of throws and deflections. Elena buried her son in a pauper's plot, the photograph her only talisman. Vengeance simmered, slow as Siberian thaw. She learned Sergei Volkov's true face, Steven Seagal, the American ghost who danced with her boy's dreams before vanishing. Years forged her into something lethal, a retired FSB archivist with access to shadows, her seamstress hands now tracing kill lists in the dark. Back in the train car, the present snapped taut as a garrote. Elena's slap still burned, but Seagal saw it now, the crooked arm, the unyielding stare. Dmitri, he breathed, the name a confession ripped free. The Cossack veteran stirred, his knife half drawn, sensing blood in the air. Outside, the taiga blurred into infinity, but inside, time looped viciously. "You promised," Elena snarled, lunging not with frailty, but with the precision of a woman who'd memorized every Aikido form Seagal ever taught her son. Her good hand snapped forward, a feinted palm strike morphing into a knee to his groin. Seagal twisted, redirecting the momentum in a classic tenkan. But she anticipated, her elbow cracking his ribs like dry timber. Pain exploded. White-hot, but adrenaline surged, Aikido's river flowing through his veins. He countered with a wrist grab, yanking her off balance, but she rolled with it, Dmitri's lessons alive in her bones. They grappled in the cramped space, the samovar toppling in a scalding cascade, steam hissing like vengeful spirits. The Tatar merchant bolted for the door, pounding futilely against the lock, while the mistresses shrieked, clawing at pearl necklaces as if jewels could ward off doom. Seagal pinned Elena against the window, glass cracking under her back, the aurora mocking their ballet of brutality. "It wasn't betrayal," he gasped, breath ragged. "The chopper, there was no room. I chose him over her. Her, the asset. The mission that birthed his legend." Elena's laugh was a shard of glass. "Lies for the cameras, Sergei. Dmitri died calling your name, and you start in films where heroes never leave the weak behind." She headbutted him, forehead splitting his brow, blood trickling warm into his eye. The train bucked over a ravine bridge, the world tilting into abyss, mirroring the chasm between them. Seagal released her, staggering back, not from pain, but the hook of truth. He'd buried that night deeper than any body, scripting his life as unyielding triumph. But here, in this iron serpent, the script tore. Alarms blared, suddenly harsh claxons piercing the fray. The compartment door shuddered, FSB seals glowing under emergency lights. Seagal's contact? Or Elena's trap? She'd boarded with purpose, her accidental seating a lure, the locked door her snare. But why now? The nuke schematic burned in his coat pocket, a microdot etched with Armageddon's blueprint. Had she known? Tracked him across continents, her vendetta laced with espionage? "You think this is just about Dmitri?" She taunted, wiping blood from her lip, her babushka askew to reveal silver hair cropped like a soldier's. "The boy was my heart. But you're the poison in Russia's veins. That package you're carrying? It ends tonight. Hook upon hook, the mission compromised, the past weaponized." Seagal's mind whirred exfil routes, improvised weapons, the Cossack's knife now fully drawn and arcing toward Elena's throat. Chaos erupted. The veteran, mistaking her for the threat, lunged. Seagal intercepted, a hip throw sending the man crashing into the berth, bones crunching like frost under boots. The mistresses fled as the door finally burst open, FSB stormtroopers in balaclavas spilling in, Uzis leveled. "Volkov, hands up!" Their captain barked, eyes darting to Elena, recognition flickering. Not his contact, hers. The old woman was no mere widow. She was a legend in her own right, the Grey Widow of FSB lore, who'd outfoxed oligarchs and assassins with a seamstress's patience. Bullets chewed the air as Seagal dove behind an appended table, the schematic his lifeline and curse. Elena vanished into the scrum, her form a blur of redirected fury, Dimitri's ghost in every strike. A trooper charged. Seagal's foot swept low, Irimi Nage hurling the man into his comrades like dominoes in a blizzard. Outside, the train screamed into a tunnel, plunging them into Stygian dark, muzzle flashes strobing like lightning in hell. Why the slap? Seagal roared over the din, grappling a soldier whose bayonet kissed his jugular. Elena's voice ghosted from the shadows. To wake you, Sergei. From the dream where you play the hero. Dmitri deserved better. Russia does. The fight spilled into the corridor, a maelstrom of grunts and gunfire. The train sway turning every step into a gamble with gravity. Passengers cowered in alcoves, their screams fuel for Seagal's rage. He disarmed two more, joints popping like champagne corks. But Elena was the true blade slipping through the melee, her crooked arm no hindrance as she palmed a trooper's grenade. For my son, she murmured, lobbing it toward the captain. Seagal tackled her mid-throw, the explosive clattering harmlessly, rolling under a baggage cart as it detonated in a roar that shook the cars like God's own wrath. Debris rained shattered wood. Twisted metal, the acrid bite of cordite. The tunnel's end bloomed light, the train erupting into starlit expanse, Lake Baikal's frozen mirror reflecting the carnage. Seagal and Elena tumbled from a shattered door, hitting the snow in a tangle of limbs, the locomotive thundering away without them. Cold seeped instant, 1,000 needles piercing flesh, but they rose, circling like wolves on ice. No guns now, just hands, the purest arena. Finish it, Seagal challenged, breath clouding the air, his cheek still throbbing from her mark. Elena circled, limping but lethal. I came for justice, not blood. But if you force it. She fainted left, her strike a mirror of Dimitri's old form's Yokoman Uchi, descending blade hand. Seagal parried, the block jarring his bones, countering with a Jo Uchi thrust that grazed her shoulder. Blood darkened her shawl, but she pressed, her rage a renewable force. You taught him to bend the world, she gasped, dodging a Kategashi wrist lock. But you broke it first. Hook, a revelation mid-strike. In the frenzy, Seagal glimpsed the truth. She hadn't just tracked him for revenge. The schematic was bait, a Kremlin ploy to lure out American assets. Elena was the hunter, sanctioned. Her slap the signal for the trap's snap. The ice cracked beneath them, Baikal groaning like a beast awakening. Seagal slipped, Elena pouncing, her knee driving into his solar plexus, air exploding from his lungs. Stars wheeled. Vulnerability crashed in, the invincible facade shattering. Dmitri. I failed him, he wheezed, not fighting back, the admission a dam breaking. Tears froze on his lashes, the first since that chopper night. Elena's fist hovered, trembling, then fell limp. We all fail, she whispered, slumping beside him, the fight bleeding out into exhaustion. Sirens wailed, distant reinforcements closing. The schematic lay exposed in the snow, a glittering temptation. In that fragile truce. Stories spilled like blood, Elena's years of quiet fury. Stitching wounds in FSB infirmaries while plotting in margins. Seagal's hollow triumphs, blockbusters masking the void where family should have been. I thought revenge would fill it, she confessed, her voice cracking like the ice. But seeing you flinch, it's enough. He nodded, the slap sting now a brand of absolution. Together, they torched the microdot flames dancing blue on white, denying both sides the prize. As choppers buzzed overhead, spotlights carving the night, they parted. Elena melting into the tree line, a gray wraith unbound. Seagal trudging toward the horizon, lighter, scarred anew. The Trans-Siberian thundered on without them. carrying ghosts to forgotten stations. But Seagal? He walked changed. The slaps echo a mantra. Heroes bleed, promises scar, and redemption slaps hardest when least expected. In the end, it wasn't vengeance that hooked the soul, but forgiveness raw, unscripted, eternal as Siberia's frost. If you've ever cheered for Steven Seagal as he took down the impossible in Under Siege or Hard to Kill, then this untold tale of betrayal and redemption on the Trans-Siberian will hit you right in the nostalgia. It's the kind of story that reminds us heroes have heartaches, too perfect for sharing with fellow 80s action fans. Hit that like button if Seagal's Siberian slapdown stirred something in you. Share this video with a buddy who grew up quoting his one-liners. And if you're craving more deep dives into Hollywood's hidden edges, subscribe and turn on notifications. We've got classics like this dropping daily for the timeless crowd. Your support keeps these stories rolling. What's your favorite Seagal flick? Drop it in the comments, let's chat. Thanks for watching. Here's to the legends that shaped us.